The last stand. The bridge of the coalition flagship Valiant Horizon shook violently as another plasma volley tore through its shields. Admiral Kelthar, a veteran Zenthari commander with 4 arms and crystalline skin that glowed faintly blue, gripped the command rail with 3 hands while the 4th worked frantically across a holographic display. "Shield integrity at 18%, shouted his tactical officer, a young Mirana named Cess who had seen her first combat only 3 months ago. Her feathered crest lay flat against her skull, a sign of pure terror among her species. Kelthar's compound eyes swept across the battlefield display, and what he saw offered no hope. The Verkov swarm had them surrounded. Thousands upon thousands of biomechanical ships, living vessels grown from flesh and metal, closed in from every direction. Their crimson hulls pulsed with alien hunger, and their weapons fired in perfect, terrible synchronization. The coalition fleet had started this battle with 347 ships. Now only 62 remained. "Sir, the steadfast dawn is gone," Cess reported, her voice breaking. "The Kralix defense line just collapsed. We've lost the entire western quadrant." On the view screen, a coalition cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash, its wreckage tumbling through space like dying embers. The Verkov swarm swept through the debris field without slowing, their bioships absorbing the scattered metal and energy to fuel their endless reproduction. This was how the Verkov fought. They didn't just destroy, they consumed. Every ship they killed made them stronger. Every world they devoured added to their numbers. For 6 months, the coalition had held them at the Drayan system, protecting the 11 colony worlds that sheltered over 4 billion souls. But today, the line had finally broken. "All ships fall back to defensive formation Theta 7, Kelthar commanded, even though he knew it wouldn't matter. Theta 7 was a last stand formation. It meant they had nowhere left to run. His communications officer, a Torvian named Dresk with 4 optical stalks, turned from his console. "Admiral, we're receiving evacuation status from the colonies. The civilian transports won't clear the gravity well for another 40 minutes. 40 minutes. They had to hold for 40 minutes. Kelthar looked at the tactical display again. The Verkov would overrun them in 10. "Send a priority distress call on all coalition frequencies," he said quietly. And send it on the old emergency bands, too. The restricted ones." Dresk's optical stalk swiveled in surprise. "Sir, those channels reach into quarantined space. Into the Sol system." "I know, but the humans are pre-FTL. They were classified as technologically infantile 30 years ago. Even if they received the message, they couldn't—" "Send it anyway," Kelthar snapped. "Send it everywhere. Someone somewhere might hear us. It's all we have left." Dresk worked his console, and moments later, the distress call screamed out into the void in 100 different languages and formats. "This is Admiral Kelthar of the Coalition Defense Fleet. We are under attack at the Drayan system by Verkov forces. 11 billion civilians at risk. Any ships in range, please respond. This is a final distress call. We cannot hold." The words echoed into the darkness of space, and Kelthar expected no answer. The Verkov pressed closer. The Valiant Horizon shuddered as another impact nearly tore through the hull. "Shield failure imminent," Cess cried, then Dresk gasped. All 4 of his optical stalks locked onto his console in perfect alignment, something Kelthar had never seen him do before. "Admiral, we have a response." "What? From where?" I don't understand." The signal says, "Terran Defense Fleet responding to distress call. Hold position. We're coming." Kelthar's breath caught. "Terran? You mean—" "Yes, sir, human. That's impossible." "They don't have FTL. They can't even leave their own star system." "Tell that to them, sir, because I'm reading FTL signatures. Multiple contacts, 20. No, 50. No." Dresk's voice rose in disbelief. "Admiral, I'm reading 200 FTL signatures inbound. They'll be here in 30 seconds." The bridge went silent except for the sound of alarms and distant explosions. 200 ships, Cess whispered. "The humans don't have 200 ships. They don't have any ships." Kelthar stared at the tactical display as new icons began to appear at the edge of the system. Clean white triangular markers representing unknown vessels. Terran vessels. "All ships hold formation," he ordered. "Let's see what our mysterious rescuers can do." The 30 seconds stretched like hours. The Verkov swarm sensed something too, their formations rippling with confusion as their sensors detected the massive energy signatures emerging from FTL. Then, in a flash of light that lit up the entire battlefield, The Terran defense fleet arrived. They didn't arrive slowly. They didn't arrive cautiously. They arrived like the wrath of an angry god. 200 human warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls sleek and angular, bristling with weapons that glowed with barely contained power. At their center, a massive dreadnought the size of a small moon hung in space like a steel monument to human ambition. On its hull, in letters 10 meters tall, was written, UNSS Indomitable. For one heartbeat, everything was still. Then the humans opened fire, and the galaxy would never be the same. The storm unleashed. First human salvo crossed the void in less than a second. Admiral Kael'thar watched in stunned silence as beams of pure, coherent light, bluer and brighter than anything he'd ever seen, lanced out from the Terran fleet. They moved faster than his sensors could track, faster than physics should allow. The beams struck the leading edge of the Verkov swarm, and 300 bioships simply ceased to exist. No explosions. No debris. They were there one moment and gone the next, vaporized so completely that not even atoms remained. By the ancestors, Cess breathed, her feathered crest slowly rising in awe. But the humans weren't finished. The entire Terran formation shifted with impossible precision, their ships moving in perfect synchronization as if controlled by a single mind. They rotated 45 degrees, and a second wave of weapons fire erupted from their hulls. This time it wasn't energy beams. These were solid projectiles, massive slugs of dense metal accelerated to relativistic speeds by electromagnetic rails that ran the length of each human warship. Kael'thar had read about kinetic weapons in historical archives. Primitive, outdated, something ancient species used before discovering energy shields and plasma technology. But these weren't primitive. Each railgun slug hit with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. They punched through Verkov bioships like they were made of paper, the sheer kinetic energy tearing vessels apart from the inside. Explosions bloomed across the swarm like deadly flowers, each one taking out dozens of surrounding ships in chain reactions of destruction. In 15 seconds, the humans had destroyed over 2,000 Verkov vessels. The Verkov swarm, which had never retreated in recorded history, hesitated. Dresk, Kael'thar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you seeing this? Yes, Admiral. The Torvians' optical stalks trembled. Their weapons. The energy output is impossible. A single one of those human dreadnoughts is producing more power than our entire fleet combined. And their formation control, Cess added, her claws flying across her tactical console. Look at them move. There's no communication lag, no hesitation. They're reacting to threats in microseconds. On the view screen, the Terran fleet pressed forward. The massive dreadnought Indomitable took point, its hull blazing with weapons fire. Smaller human destroyers and cruisers fanned out in a perfect sphere formation, creating interlocking fields of fire that nothing could penetrate. The Verkov swarm tried to adapt. Thousands of bioships dove toward the human fleet from multiple angles, attempting to overwhelm them with sheer numbers, the same tactic that had destroyed coalition fleets for months. The humans didn't even slow down. Point defense systems activated across every human ship. Rapid-fire cannons, thousands of them, created a wall of metal that shredded any Verkov vessel that came within 5 kilometers. The space between the human fleet and the swarm became a killing field of explosions and debris. They're not even using their shields, Cess said in disbelief. Admiral, sensors show the human ships have defensive energy barriers, but they haven't activated them. They're killing everything before it gets close enough to matter. Kael'thar pulled up a tactical analysis on his display. The numbers were staggering. In 2 minutes of combat, the Terran defense fleet had destroyed nearly 6,000 Verkov ships. The coalition fleet in 6 months of fighting had destroyed less than 3,000, and the humans hadn't lost a single vessel. Open a channel, Kael'thar ordered. I need to speak with whoever commands that fleet. Dresk worked his console, then nodded. Channel open, sir. They're responding. The view screen flickered and a human face appeared, female with dark skin and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a crisp white uniform with golden insignia on the collar. Behind her, Kael'thar could see a bridge that was sleek and minimalist, dominated by holographic displays and crew members working with calm efficiency. "This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Service," she said. Her voice was firm but carried an edge of warmth. "Admiral Kael'thar, I presume?" "Yes," Kael'thar managed. "Fleet Admiral Chen, your arrival is unexpected. We were told your species was pre-FTL." A slight smile crossed Chen's face. "We were 6 years ago. A lot can change in 6 years when you're properly motivated." She glanced at something off-screen. "Admiral, we're reading 11 billion civilians on those colony worlds. Is that accurate?" "Yes, we've been trying to evacuate Understood. My fleet will handle the Verkov. I need you to focus everything on getting those civilians to safety. Can you do that?" Kael'thar felt a surge of hope for the first time in months. Yes, we can." "Good, we'll keep them busy." "Chen out." The channel closed and Kael'thar turned to his crew. "You heard her? All ships form up on the evacuation transports. We're getting our people out of here." On the view screen, the human fleet continued its devastating assault. The Indomitable fired its main cannon, a weapon so massive it ran the entire 2-kilometer length of the ship. The beam that erupted from it was like a miniature star, a column of superheated plasma that carved through the Verkov swarm like a knife through flesh. 3,000 bioships died in that single shot. The Verkov swarm began to break apart. For the first time in the war, they were losing. Not just losing, they were being systematically annihilated by a species they'd never even heard of. The bioships started to retreat, pulling back toward the system's outer edges. But Admiral Chen wasn't letting them go. "All ships, pursuit formation." Her voice echoed across coalition communication channels. "We're not letting a single one of these things escape. We end this threat today." The Terran fleet surged forward, their engines burning bright blue as they accelerated to speeds that made coalition ships look like they were standing still. On the bridge of the Valiant Horizon, Kael'thar watched in awe as the humans chased down the retreating swarm. Every few seconds, another cluster of Verkov ships would vanish in bursts of light and fire. "Admiral," Sess said quietly. "Who are these humans?" Kael'thar shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but I think we've all made a terrible mistake underestimating them." Out in the black, the Terran defense fleet continued its work, and the Verkov swarm, for the first time in its existence, learned what it meant to be prey. A new dawn 3 hours later. The battle was over. Admiral Kael'thar stood on the observation deck of the Valiant Horizon, staring out at what remained of the Verkov swarm, which was to say nothing. The space where thousands of bioships had darkened the stars was now empty, save for scattered debris fields that glowed faintly in the light of Draen's sun. The Terran defense fleet hung in formation nearby, their white hulls pristine despite the carnage they'd inflicted. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. Only 3 had even reported minor damage. "Admiral, Fleet Admiral Chen is requesting permission to come aboard," Dresk announced from behind him. Kael'thar turned, his crystalline skin pulsing with a mixture of exhaustion and curiosity. "Permission granted. Have her meet me in the diplomatic conference room. And Dresk, make sure we show proper respect. These humans just saved 11 billion lives." "Yes, sir." 20 minutes later, Kael'thar entered the conference room to find Admiral Chen already there, standing by the viewport with her hands clasped behind her back. She was shorter than he'd expected. Humans were a small species compared to most coalition races, but she carried herself with quiet authority. 2 other humans flanked her. One was a tall male with graying hair and the insignia of a captain. The other was a younger woman with keen eyes and the uniform of a science officer. "Admiral Chen," Kael'thar said, performing the traditional Zenthari bow of respect, all 4 arms crossed over his chest. "On behalf of the coalition of allied species, I offer our deepest gratitude. You saved us. You saved billions of innocent lives. We are forever in your debt." Chen returned the gesture with a human bow, a slight inclination of her head. "No debt necessary, Admiral. We came because you needed help. That's what civilized species do for each other." Kael'thar gestured for them to sit at the conference table. As they settled in, he couldn't help but study the humans more closely. They looked so ordinary. Soft skin, bilateral symmetry, binocular vision. Nothing about their physiology suggested the terrifying military capability he'd just witnessed. "I must ask," Kael'thar began, "how is any of this possible? 30 years ago, the Coalition survey ships cataloged your species as pre-FTL. You had barely left your home planet. And now, he gestured toward the viewport where the Terran fleet hung in space. Now you arrive with a fleet that just destroyed the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. In 3 hours. Chen glanced at her companions, then back at Kael'thar. Admiral, may I be frank? Please. 30 years ago, your survey ships didn't just catalog us. They quarantined us. They placed warning beacons around our solar system, declared Sol off limits, and classified humanity as technologically infantile and potentially dangerous. Her voice remained calm, but Kael'thar detected an edge to it. Do you know why? Kael'thar shifted uncomfortably. He'd read the classified reports. Your species was deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable. The Coalition decided it would be safer to isolate you until you matured culturally. They were afraid of us, the tall male captain said bluntly, because we still had wars, because we hadn't achieved perfect unity, because we argued and fought and didn't fit the Coalition's definition of civilized. Chen held up a hand and the captain fell silent. What the Coalition didn't understand, she continued, is that our conflicts made us stronger. Every challenge we faced, every problem we encountered, we solved it. We adapted. We innovated. While other species followed established technological paths, we blazed our own trails. The science officer leaned forward. 6 years ago, we detected the Coalition's distress calls about the Verkov. We listened as species after species fell to them. We watched the death toll climb into the billions. And we realized that if we didn't do something, the Verkov would eventually reach Sol. So we did something, Chen said simply. We took the theoretical FTL equations that Coalition survey ships had inadvertently leaked into our databases. We refined them, improved them. Within 2 years, we had functional faster-than-light travel that was twice as efficient as Coalition standard. Kael'thar's eyes widened. 2 years? It took the Xanthari 80 years to develop FTL. We didn't have 80 years, Chen replied. We had a threat bearing down on us and billions of lives at stake. Desperation is an excellent motivator. She gestured to the captain. Captain Rodriguez here led the team that weaponized our particle accelerator research. Those railguns you saw, they're based on the same technology we were using for scientific research. Rodriguez nodded. The energy weapons came from our fusion reactor programs, the point defense systems from our drone technology, the formation control from our civilian traffic management AI. We didn't invent anything new, Admiral. We just applied what we already had in creative ways. In 3 years, we built a fleet, Chen continued. In the 4th year, we trained crews. In the 5th year, we conducted exercises and simulations. And this year, the 6th year, we listened for anyone who needed help. She stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the recovered colony worlds in the distance. Your distress call wasn't the first we'd received. But the Drayan system was close enough and the threat was immediate enough that we could respond. So we did. Kael'thar joined her at the viewport. You risked your entire fleet, your entire species' defense to save people you'd never met. Yes. Why? Chen turned to face him, and Kael'thar saw something in her eyes that he recognized. It was the same thing he saw in his own reflection after months of desperate fighting. Determination, resolve, the absolute refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming darkness. Because, Admiral, the Coalition once judged us as too aggressive and dangerous to join galactic civilization. They said we weren't ready, that we needed to mature. She smiled slightly. But I think they confused aggression with determination, violence with the will to protect. They saw our wars and conflicts and missed the most important thing about humanity. What's that? We never ever give up. Not on ourselves, not on each other, and certainly not on innocent people who need help. She extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. The Coalition spent 30 years afraid of what humanity might do if we reached the stars. Today I think we showed them. Kael'thar stared at the offered hand, then reached out with one of his forearms and grasped it firmly. Fleet Admiral Chen, I will personally recommend to the Coalition Council that humanity be granted full membership status. After today, no one can deny that you've earned your place among the stars. We appreciate that, Admiral. But we're not doing this for membership or recognition. Chen's grip was surprisingly strong. We're doing it because it's right. Over the next few hours, Kael'thar learned more about the mysterious humans. They shared technical data freely, something that shocked him as most species guarded their military secrets jealously. They offered medical assistance to the wounded Coalition crews. They even provided food supplies to the refugee transports, claiming they had plenty to spare. As the Terran fleet prepared to depart, Chen returned to the Valiant Horizon one final time. "We'll be establishing a forward base at the Drayan system's edge," she told Kael'thar. "In case the Verkov try to return, we're also dispatching humanitarian vessels to assist with colony reconstruction." "You've already done so much," Kael'thar protested. "Admiral, humanity has a saying, in for a penny, in for a pound. We don't do things halfway." She smiled. "Besides, we've been alone for 30 years. It's time we properly introduced ourselves to the galaxy." As Chen's shuttle departed back to the Indomitable, Sess approached Kael'thar with a datapad. "Admiral, I've compiled the final battle statistics. You need to see this." Kael'thar took the pad and read through the numbers. Total Verkov ships destroyed 14,847. Total human casualties 0. Total human ships lost 0. Battle duration 2 hours 43 minutes. "They didn't just win," Sess said quietly. "They achieved what military theorists would call a perfect victory. Complete annihilation of the enemy with 0 friendly losses." Kael'thar watched as the Terran fleet began moving toward the system's edge, their engines burning blue against the black. "Send a message to Coalition Command. Mark it Priority Alpha 1. What should I tell them, sir?" Kael'thar thought about the aggressive, dangerous species the Coalition had feared for 3 decades. The species that had just saved 11 billion lives without asking for anything in return. The species that turned theory into reality in years instead of decades. That fought with the precision of machines and the courage of heroes. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that humanity has arrived, and the galaxy will never be the same." In the distance, the UNSS Indomitable aligned its trajectory and engaged its FTL drive. For just a moment, the massive dreadnought seemed to hang suspended between stars, a monument to human ingenuity, determination, and the refusal to surrender in the face of darkness. Then, in a flash of blue light, it was gone. But Kael'thar knew they would see the humans again. And next time, the galaxy would be ready to welcome them not as dangerous unknowns but as the heroes they'd proven themselves to be. The age of humanity had begun.